Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight, we're having a conversation. I think I've talked about this before. It's hard to say, guys. It's been almost 10 years since I've been talking about sex and intimacy here on Inspired Choices Network. And for those of you listening on a different platform, guess what? It's probably been there for just as long. So if you're wondering, holy cow, 10 years, how many episodes? Well over 450 episodes. So go back, find some episodes that you are guaranteed to enjoy. And tonight's episode is one that I think might surprise you, but we might have tapped into this in some episodes before. So this is just going to be more in depth. Tonight, we're going to be talking to my cousin, who's also a healer in her own right and brings a lot of awareness to the planet and a lot of joy. I will give you her official bio, but that's part of it. And also, she, to me, is my little cousin, even though she's not. She's grown up now, but she's always going to be my little cousin. And growing up, I always knew, I saw something in her and I knew something about her, that I knew that she had a little bit of a rebel nature to her, and that she wanted to be a change agent, and she wanted to be seen, and she wanted to be heard. I knew all these things about her from when she was really little. And I also knew that she had really good instincts and really clear capacities with intuition. And so when I was like a teenager, I would bring my boyfriends over to her and her brother to see if they would survive my cousin's interrogation. And this is one of my cousins who got to, probably didn't know it, interrogate my boyfriends. Although I don't know if anybody else knew what was happening, but I knew what was happening. So we're going to be talking to my cousin, Natasha Jelenic, who is going to be sharing with us some information and awareness that she has around what our topic is tonight, which is sexually transmitted energies. And I'm sure you guys have heard of sexually transmitted infections, STIs, formerly known as sexually transmitted diseases. But there are things that we haven't really fully discussed in sort of an open platform, right? Where, getting this information out to the world about sexually transmitted energies. And sometimes we only assume that sex involves the bodies, but we forget that there can be, energies involved, emotions, all these other things that can actually get, say, contaminated. So we're going to discuss all of that. Natasha is a passionate medicine woman, mentor, and visionary guide. She's skilled in various modalities, methods, and teachings to help her clients navigate through challenging spiritual awakenings, self-discovery, and personal and professional growth. Nata is instrumental in guiding clients out of their trauma-infused behaviors and their toughest transformations so that they can live their most prosperous life. She supports and empowers her clients to make wise decisions that lead to inspired actions that are intentionally aligned with a clear and meaningful vision of who they wish to become, going beyond what they knew possible. Nata leads impactful and oftentimes life-changing psychedelic journeys for those who are seeking a deeper understanding of who they are becoming or the healing that is required to move forward on their journey. Nata creates and holds a safe and sacred environment which allows individuals the ability to go deeper into self-discovery and exploration. And her customized experiences, combined with her unique and highly effective integration process, are a catalyst for sustainable change and conscious embodiment. So last year, Natasha was on to talk about, we were talking about somatic breath work and what that can do, because that's also one of the modalities that she facilitates people with.
Mhm.
So tonight we're going to be diving into how to avoid sexually transmitted energies. That's a whopper of a title.
Yeah.
So I know um, on occasion I'm so used to calling Natasha cousin, I may just be like, "Hey cousin, what do you think of this?" So
Yeah.
that's just habit.
Okay.
If you guys are like, "Why do you guys call each other that?" It's just how we roll. So so, cousin, how's it going? And when we were talking about this show, actually we weren't really talking about this as a show. We were talking about this as an experience. And I was like, hey, let's talk about this on the show.
Mm. Mm.
What was it that kind of triggered your thought to go, yeah, you know what? Let's go public. Let's get visible. Let's have this conversation where we're going to be seen, by whoever in our family watches this. And, all these other people, because I actually get reports that are like from my dad going, hey, so and so from church watches your show. And I'm like, fascinating.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I'm like, what do they tell you, Dad? So it's
Amazing.
fun. So what made you think, yeah, you know what? Let's do this. Let's get in front of everybody we know, and we're going to talk about sexually transmitted energies.
Mm.
Sounds
Mm.
delightful, cousin. Let's do this.
Well, what's interesting is you used to bring me your boyfriends, and then when I would start seeing one growing up, I'm a big girl now, I would start like bringing you the energies of the people that I was seeing and or sending them to you for scans so that I could see what was going on. So it's funny how that circle kind of keeps on giving, and who knows what happens, Maybe Z will come to me, PP will come to
Yep.
you, we never know. So yeah, it's
No.
such a great topic. It's such a great topic, and I've learned so much over the years, and so much that I wish I could just like not like warn. It's not like, oh my God, but like as we become more conscious, we are more susceptible and more aware of the energies. And I think that's thanks to you that you taught me so much awareness, super, super young. Like I remember even, like learning tarot super young and then really just digging into how I can apply these teachings to my life. And it really wasn't until like the last 10 years of my awakening that I was really just navigating so many energies and going through my own initiations and shamanic practices, initiations that I was like really like I could feel like leeching energies when not even doesn't even have to get to the point of like having sex, but even intimacy with someone or hugging someone and then like whoosh, like feeling all their energy and just like remember calling you like, what do I do? I have this entity that's latched onto me. So such an important topic and fun.
Yeah, it is. And I like that you really emphasize that it isn't necessarily just sexual and it can come across in other ways. It can feel sexual sometimes, though, for sure. Even so, I remember so there used to be this place in Toronto and I don't know if it's still there. It was at Bloor and Lansdowne. It was like on the south, and it was a spiritual church. So I went there for, I don't know, I just went into everything in my life, been to Buddhist temples, been to mosques, like, so I went into this spiritual church. And there were people doing free healings at this church. And there was one person who I felt like I was like, yeah, you know what? If I'm going to go up and get a free healing, I'm going to go to that person. Well, the way they had it set up in the church was that whoever became available, if you were in the line, you had to go to them. So I didn't get to go to the person that I wanted to go to. I was instructed to go to somebody else. And I went to get up, and they actually said, just sit down. Like, if you want a healing, this is who you get. Then I'm like, well, then I'm just going to leave.
Mm.
And it actually felt like very aggressively pushy. Like I was supposed to take it whether I wanted it or not. And whether you're doing that to somebody with energy, like, just take this healing, you're supposed to like it and you're supposed to be okay with this. I didn't know the lady that was working on me. I also didn't know the other person that I was feeling good about working on me. But I definitely felt kindness from that person. And I was like, yeah, I would have you work on me, but I don't feel good about you. I was
Oh,
particular, right? And in that setting, it wasn't okay to be particular. And in my opinion, it's always okay to be particular. Like, do not
100.
invade people's space like that. Yeah, it's
100.
so not cool.
Yes, I agree.
So, yeah, those are like other ways that we can get these like sexually transmitted energies, but they
Mm.
feel aggressive and they
Mm.
can feel very much like a violation. So, if you have felt that and you thought you were crazy, you're probably not, just letting you know.
No, you are not. And to really, and that, that's one of the tips on the how to avoid these is having an exit plan always. It doesn't matter what is happening. If your body is reacting and you're not in alignment and something is off for you, that's no explanation required. You are a sovereign being. You exit when you need to leave. And it's when we don't, that's where we cause the internal damage, right? That's when we're really shrinking and lowering our field. And that's when we're even more susceptible to more entities and energies that are going to latch onto us. Fun times.
I want to be really clear on, so when we say exit, doesn't mean keep your body there and leave your body so that things can hop on in and take over. It means like get up and physically leave. So I just want to be clear on that, because there is the tendency that when that's happening, you will just scooch out because your instinct is you want to get away, but you're trying to be the nice, kind person. You don't want to be insulting. You don't want to be rude. Be insulting, be rude, have your own back, and get the F out.
Yeah.
Always. So yeah.
I actually had that
kindness. That
came up for me. I was at a shaman's heart opening retreat one year, many years back in my awakening, and where I was having my own initiations. And I remember sitting there, and we're in a group of people, and he's doing this healing, and I'm sitting against this wall, and he's doing like some tobacco, and he comes around to me and gets like right up like in my space, like just like creepster energy, just like I could just feel all of it. And this little girl in me she just froze, and she was just like, I can't even believe that this is happening right now. I'm at a heart opening retreat. This feels so invasive. This feels so like, I just felt, I was just shocked, And from that moment on, after I left that, I knew that I came there for that medicine, because I always believe that we are being served our medicine so that we can rise from it and really be able to anchor in our truth and seek what we're there for, the medicine. And I was just remember, like, I will not let that happen ever again in my life, no matter what situation I'm put into. And I also want to be a voice for other women to remind themselves of your power and to reclaim your power. And we're not just these little girls who are going to be quiet and be good and disciplined, and so everybody likes them. Like, that story needs to go. Like, we've finished that story and that timeline. And it is up to us to speak our truth. And that makes people feel uncomfortable. Sorry. Not even sorry. I'm not even sorry for that. That's for yours to deal with, right?
It is what it is. Yeah. And feel, so sometimes being in these environments, and it's not always men that are being creepsters. It doesn't really matter what body they come in. There are creepy people who will, do weird shit with their energy. So, and I have said, like, I have when I teach classes, it can get sexual. So I often will warn people, like, this is kind of what I bring on the planet. So if you're uncomfortable, you need to either don't come to my classes or walk out. Like, know that you have that right? So there does tend to be a thing where it's good if you know that about yourself too, as a facilitator. If you know that you bring sexual energy and that can trigger people, if people are coming in there and they have traumas that they haven't dealt with, and that isn't what the workshop is about. When I'm doing trauma workshops, I tell people this is a trauma workshop. When it's not, and we're inviting something else, and if you have a lot of old traumas, they will come up. And these situations will remind you of that. And sometimes it'll take you down a hole, right? So what was good about these situations for me, like going to that scenario of the church, was it reminded me of how many times in my life that I thought I didn't have a right to stand up for myself or speak up for myself. And it was like this ongoing cycle of be the good girl, people pleaser, right? So that's when our bodies are going through, it's like you switch from parasympathetic dominance to sympathetic dominance. You're actually in fawn mode. Your body doesn't know if it's going to fight or flight or freeze. It doesn't know what to do. It's just like everywhere all at once, which is chaos to the nervous system, right? So these things will affect your nervous system. Energy affects your nervous system. Your nervous system is electrical. So it does affect it. So when and if you've ever experienced something funky like we're talking about, these are kind of mild variations in a way. It's all a violence really to the energy. And we can make it seem like it's just your energy. But actually, if it sits there for a really long time, it starts to permeate. It permeates your mind, your being, who you are. It starts to affect you. It starts to make you believe things about yourself that aren't even true. And then you got to go in and clear it. It's like you've been wearing a cloak of gross for a really long time, and you thought that was truly who you were, but it's not. So under all that crap that's been put on you, you'll find you in there, right? So you get
But not a lot of people know that.
Clear the space.
Yeah. Not a lot of people know that, and they start to attach with this energy that's onto them, thinking, oh, this is just mine, and I'm just like this, and this is how it's supposed to be. And we need to know that there's greater possibilities. We need to know how to remove these energies and to really step forward into that. So yeah, it's such a potent conversation, and a conversation that I wish I would have known also when I was younger, when experiencing and interacting those energies, and not feeling so insecure after certain situations. And like you said, it doesn't have to be, the same sex, opposite sex. It's all energy. Like I've had also that same energy come on to me from women, and whether they're conscious or unconscious of it, it doesn't really matter. It's still coming at you too. So that's always interesting to navigate.
So yeah, we're going to head to our first break, and when we come back,
Awesome.
I'd like to look at it as, let's make it personal. Like, what can we do for ourselves personally, right? Because we can't change the other people. If somebody is, projecting energy at you, and we can't really force change on anybody else, but what can we do for ourselves would be key. And I think one of the things I'd like to look at is, as well, is how do you know, right? Like, if you have an STD, you can go to a doctor, you can go to a healer, you can go to somebody and they can check you for that. How would somebody want to go in, or how do they do this? Like, how do they figure out they have contracted? I'll call it contracted because it feels like that, an STD. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll talk about that after the break. So you guys are listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we will be right back with Natasha Jelenic right after this break.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight, we are having a conversation, we being me and my cousin, Nata Jelenic, who is also a healer. And That's a really simplified version. If you would like to hear her bigger bio, you can go back and have a listen to the beginning if you missed that. We're talking about how to avoid sexually transmitted energies. What are they? How do you know if you've got them? OMG. So, what are your thoughts on that, Nata? Like, what are some of the first things that we would need to start with when it comes to sexually transmitted energies?
Well, I really liked what you said about before we finished that commercial about, it's not about fixing the other person or about what we are experiencing in the field. It's about really like, I always ask like, what part of me actually wanted to experience this and what am I trying to get from this? This actual scenario, because it can play out and the monkey mind can just take over and create all these stories. And it's really about like, kind of like that parts work where we can just separate ourselves from it and just like, just be with it. And so how do you know? It's a great one. I would say that if your energy shifts, and you can kind of pay attention to this, if your energy shifts when you're with someone, let's say your family, somebody who's not in this actual kind of, but you are like very empathetic to them and you can kind of feel their energy. And then after you leave, you kind of like, you kind of go downhill because you can feel so much of their energies. I would be an observer of that. And if you are susceptible to people's energies, I guarantee that if you're in an intimate relationship with a partner or a fling, that you are also feeling into their energies. And so I like to do like a timeline thing where it's like, where did I really start feeling like this? Like, when did my energy really shift? Or what happened with my digestion? Or what was going on with my body at that time? And kind of go back and see where the trigger came. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. Going back and checking it out, because sometimes it isn't, you might have just felt it or just become aware of it, but the truth is it could have been lingering, right? It could be like herpes where it's been, gone dormant for a while and then it creeps back up and gets in your face. So it can be that. So then even with herpes, you'd want to go back and track, and then you go, oh, you know what? It's passed on genealogically. It's, through our entire generations, the European bodies all have this crazy thing. But there's those miasmic things, but then we've also got, and actually that's an interesting thought. If we can transmit things, in homeopathy, there's this thing that we call miasms, where they're generational diseases, right? And culturally, there are certain diseases that come from certain cultures, right? So there's more like herpes in the Europeans, and then you have the British who have like syphilis, and then you have like skin conditions from other places. So, and there's a lot of different miasms. So I think too that sometimes we carry these things too. They can be not just from our own experience, but whether they're lifetimes or whether we're bringing them through family, right? And we were talking a lot about ancestral healing too when we were hanging out. It's probably last week. Yeah, time's flying. So, and weird, time's weird right now. It's like, it feels like 7 weeks, but it also feels like 2 days. So there you go. So let's talk about that bit. I think there's something there that I think is kind of interesting to dive into, even the things that are put on us ancestrally from our lineage. Like, what does that do also as a sexually transmitted energy?
But then you're also talking about the other person that you're intimate with, right? So now you got their whole lineage, all the energies, right? And this is different. And again, I really feel that it depends where you are in your spiritual journey, whether you've gone through Kundalini awakening, being someone who is spiritually awakened and has gone through my Kundalini awakening, I was tapping into energies that are like next level shit. And I'm like, who does this belong to? And gracefully and thankfully to you for many, many, many years of training and coaching, it was easier for me to really attune to who does this belong to? Is this even mine? And then when we're tapping into like someone else, let alone your ancestry, we know like our ancestry is like deep, and we're talking about, I've been transcending stuff like energies that have come through me in my Kundalini awakening were like next level demonic stuff that I don't even want to talk about sometimes, but it's real life. Like, this is real life that we're like clearing and invested into clearing this from, this whole lineage. And then And then you got to look at like who are you, dancing with, let's say, and how much work have they done? How much spiritual work have they done? Have they gone through the Kundalini awakening? And then like the Kundalini stuff is like just next level. We can, maybe that's like a whole other show. But like the energies, they can be quite intense. And I mean, from my own experience, I've experienced my own ancestry and what I felt in my lineage and what came through my ceremony space and the rape and then the stories that came with that and so much of that heaviness that actually really blocked me from pleasure for the first 30 years of my life, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
And having beautiful elders in my life that have passed and seeing witnessing their own pain and how they block their pleasure, I was like, I need to dig in here. And so yeah, it's one thing, our ancestry, and then we take in a partner and their ancestry and how much work they've done, and then we just it can be a lot. It can be a lot.
Yeah, and it can also be, if you are with somebody who is working on themselves, it can also be incredibly healing.
Healing, yes.
Especially if you're both aware and
Absolutely.
you're both working on it, can be really healing.
Wow.
But if you've got a lot of unconsciousness, it can get really messy.
Messy.
Think about it as chlamydia backed by gonorrhea, slap on some herpes, and then give yourself some syphilis while you're at it. We're going to go for the really dangerous killer stuff, right?
Yeah.
The herpes isn't going to kill you, but it will keep you sick for a long time. So syphilis, let's go there because it would just like make you crazy, right? So I'll throw that one in there. So if you have not cleared your stuff emotionally, physically, your generational stuff, you're basically compiling all of these diseases just so you can get the idea how funky gross it is. And the energy of how gross it is, it actually might get you to a place where you can identify that when you go to have your Tinder screw night, whatever people are doing these days. Like, I actually remember you getting the first time you had Tinder and we were going through a Tinder app and I was like, cousin, you got to check the energy on people. And then all of a sudden, like 35 people fell off your list and you're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you were doing it from like, and then you tapped in and you're like, Brig, none of them. I'm like, right. Like people are forgetting that. They're going so like their crotches are talking and they're just like, oh, my crotch says yes, because look at that guy's abs or look at her tits. Like, yes, the body says yes. But if you really tap into the energy is like, hell no, that is a funky pile of STDs slapped together in this interesting stew concoction that I do not want to go near because that's gross. So yeah, we can do that. We can be cute and we can be attracted physically and we forget to check these other things. And it's so important to know that these are valid things to be aware of. And you can't like get somebody to say, can you just go to the doctor and get me proof of that you have no STDs? Well, you can get the doctor to maybe do that for STDs or STIs, but you certainly can't get your doctor to give you you're all clear on sexually transmitted energies. No, you can't. And the fact is, if you even said it to somebody, they would probably think you're nuts. And if they do, that means they haven't done the work. And that is a good place to start. If you even mentioned it to them and they think you're cuckoo, they're probably not for you. If you connect with this idea and it rings true for you and they think you're nuts, walk away.
That's it. That's perfect. And then imagine like, I've had sisters in my community and they're like sharing and they're like, yeah, but we're in like this open relationship and and I thought this was like a really cute story once upon a time. And I was like, oh God, no, like I could not do this. Like, like you're with one partner and then once if he's with like 5 other people, you are navigating now 5 other people's energy. It can get so messy. And I've seen sisters go through this mess and like, yeah, I get it. You want to explore and you want to be like this, vibrant, sovereign soul. And then you get yourself in a big mess and it can actually take you to the darker night of the soul. And nobody wants to go there. That's not fun.
No. Yeah, I've talked about open relationships on this show. Actually, last year I did an entire puppet show to try and explain the multi-layers of how these there's different variations that can happen.
Yeah.
And the puppet show was fantastic, guys. Go back and watch it. You know, there were finger puppets involved, and I was pairing them up. And actually, your name was involved because I used all the cousins'
Oh,
names
fun.
so that I could keep track of the characters. All the
Fun.
cousins were involved, and it in my brain, I'm laughing because it was so sick. but at the same time, I could remember the names because they were all my cousins, and
Yeah.
I was pairing them up. It's pretty fun. but, but it helped me
Yo,
remember.
there's energy
So-
there too.
There is some fucking weird shit there. So that's for another show, for another
Yeah.
day. And unless we
Yeah.
get permission, we can't talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, bring on some other cousins to talk about that shit. Anyway, so that can happen, right? In families, right? And
Sure.
sometimes it's because we share these traumas and people are attracted to each other because it's like you're traumatized and I'm traumatized and we get trauma bonding. It's so
Trauma bonding.
hot. It's all the rage, right? So yeah, it's most people do find each other in trauma. We talked about this because of something else we were discussing about trauma bonding a while ago. And you were like, isn't everybody trauma bonded? And really, we do usually start out trauma bonding and then we can heal together.
Oh. I
So
do
there are ways.
find on
We
the
are
note.
going to our next break.
Okay, awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll go to our next break and then Nata, you can jump in and let us know your thoughts on that. So we're heading to our next commercial break. You're listening to the Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. If you're watching on video, stay tuned and dance with us. And we will be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes.
Fun.
Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Well, there we go. Welcome back, sweet pleasure seekers. You are listening to the Pleasure Zone on whatever method you're listening to it. Maybe you're listening to it on podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. There are over 400 places you could be actually getting this content. Isn't that thrilling? I'd love to hear from you if you are a listener, I love getting listener emails. So if you go over to my website, milicajelenic.com, that spells exactly how it sounds. No, milicajelenic.com. And you can send me a little email on there. Let me know, what episode you listened to, what you liked. I recently got a really great email from a listener who gave me like full details. I swear they are probably like one of the, well, I know somebody who's the most avid listener who's listened to every single episode I've ever done. But this was somebody I'd never met, which was cool. And super avid listener, gave me details about shows that they really appreciated and insights that really helped them. And I love that, guys. That's what keeps me going. So if you want a reason to keep me going and you love my content, please do send me a message, write comments. If you are on a platform that does likes and comments and shares, go for it. Share it as much as you like. I appreciate it. I love getting reminders from especially Spotify lately, where people are like, hey, your content was shared. I love it. Please keep doing it. The more the merrier. So for those of you who are listening tonight and you're wondering, what is this sexually transmitted energy? How do I know if I have this? We have talked a little bit about that in the last segment, and Natasha was mentioning that it's could be something that kind of got to you at some point in your life, and you're like, I don't feel quite myself. Where did that start? And we talked about backtracking to kind of figure that out. So now that we've backtracked, and we might have found out where the origins of our stuff is, and we talked about ancestry and how it could actually be stuff that we pass on genetically, passed on in utero from our mamas who were maybe experiencing things, they never resolved their traumas. So now we've got all of that and stuff being put on them, even maybe by whoever was with them at the time that we were in utero. Who knows? There can be all kinds of stuff that's happened, and all the generations back, because the saying is, it's not just a saying, it's actually like a scientific fact that you were in your grandmother's utero, so you have all her traumas guaranteed. So those eggs are, and I did an episode about that a couple of years ago too. So it's just a fascinating thing that you probably have experienced a lot of what she experienced as a little tiny egg ovum. So there you go. So we are talking about, what do we do? Like once we've tracked that, now what do we do? So I'll pass that thought over to you, Nata, and like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I also wanted, like, we talked a little bit about how this can be a very healing process. So if you're in partnership and, we've all been through some sort of wounding or trauma, and it can be very healing. And I feel that like with open communication, holding space for one another, knowing how to hold space for each other when something comes up, what you're experiencing. A lot of the times, I would be clearing things and I would shut down and I would hide. And so when your partner is like in that with you, you're able to communicate this or communicate ahead of time what you need, what you may need going forward. I think it's really important to have support if you are dealing with trauma as well. If you are, feeling that your body energetics are kind of shrinking, or it's just really important to learn awareness. Introspective awareness is our magical, like, superhero powers. And when we can attune to our bodies, we have this like radar that's, we won't even get ourselves into situations that aren't for us, because we'll know, we'll feel it. However, if you are going through something like this and you're experiencing, maybe even just chronic fatigue, or you just can't shake someone's energy, or it's like draining, or you're feeling stuff in your body, this is like a good time to work with a healer to figure out where you contracted this, how to learn some tools. I think tools on learning how to expand your aura, learning how to clear energies. I personally, whenever I'm out in a group of people being, like sensitive, I like to call it being super aware of a lot of energies. Instead of judging the energies that are coming at me, I just do my own like hygiene. My spiritual hygiene is like the number one practice that I have really attuned to. And like the first thing I would say is really attune to your body, know when you're not in your alignment, know when to exit, and then start to have those practices and build your tool belt so that you can be better equipped. And my first thing would say was just like learn to, when you come home, to unhook the energies that you were around. And I do this in like a meditative process where I'm in my meditation, laying down or sitting, and I'm visually going into the experiences and unhooking, literally unhooking the energies that were around me or that I felt that were a little bit too much. And if it's with someone that you're intimate with, you also want to unhook from their energy. We don't need to be constantly seeping energy from each other, because that's also, I find that so draining. And someone who is evolved in their spiritual work will also unhook their energy from you, because there's no sense of just constantly feeding off of each other. That means I feel like that we're needing something there, when in fact that we are whole and complete the way we are. And when we can really embody that, that makes this life and this journey with other partners and dancing this realm so much more easeful. So I would say if you're also feeling super, you're feeling these energies, or maybe it's an ex and you just can't shake it. I work with my clients to even do cord cutting. Cord cutting is really beautiful practice. I know that you've practiced a lot of cord cutting, to really just consciously detach from those energies. And it's amazing, because when that energy wants to creep in, like when you feel their energy and you've cut that cord, you've cut that cord. But it's also you consciously choosing, do you actually want to cut that cord? Do you? Because a lot of women are like, I just want to cut that cord. But then when you ask them, are you ready to cut that cord? And is this what you want? And I'm like, oh, no, actually, no. Okay, great. And maybe there's like a deeper lesson there that you're trying to receive in your medicine, for you. And that's no judgment. Like, we're all able to choose, but it's also about being aware. And if this is seeping your energy and you're like so chronically fatigued from this energy, there's a party that's choosing that, And it's like, I tell my clients too, and I have your sisters too, that I will preach this to. It's like, you're choosing this. So either learn how to work with that energy and rise, or it like takes you down every time. And then you're like worthless, really. You feel worthless. That's the energy that comes off. It's just like, oh, I'm so depleted. It's like, that's like the take. And there has to be like that reciprocity. If you are in something like that, that you're both receiving and, and giving at the same time. Those are a couple things. Do you want more?
So I like that you were mentioning, like, yeah. Well, let's start with like the rise above it, because if you can be genuinely present with yourself and not shrink and own your space, like go, this is me and I'm showing up. I choose to be me. I am me. I am divine. I am divine light. This is who I be. And then if you know that about you, and somebody tries to do their unconsciously usually, but sometimes not, narcissists will do it purposefully, and gaslighters will purposely do it. We'll just try and siphon off of you, right? When you are standing in your power and your potency, people will not screw with you. And I like to use my mom as a fine example of that. She is like queen of screw off, don't screw with me. Like, and she didn't always have that. Like, that's something she had to develop and own and hone. I think that's another word, we got to hone these things. These are things you practice on a daily basis. It's not like a one and done. Like, yeah, there was one day like I like felt really confident, and now I will be confident the rest of my life. Yeah, that you now had a taste of confidence. Keep drinking confidence every day. Drink a little confidence, because it's going to nourish you. You don't just have one vitamin A and then all of a sudden the rest of your life you're good. You're like, I've had enough vitamin A for the rest of my life. I never need to eat anything that has it ever again. I've had my fill. So these are like things, these are like elements and components that we need every day in order to actually feel strong, have healthy bodies, have healthy energetic bodies, so that we are clearing them. Like you were saying, you end up in situations and sometimes there is like, sticky, messy stuff because maybe there was just a lot of people and you weren't prepared for it or something. And then you come home and you clear it. And if you don't know, you're like, what if I don't remember? You know what? Make signs. Put a sign beside your bed. Put a sign on your phone. Put a remind. Like if you have decided you're going out to an event or something, put a remind on your phone after that event to say, clear my energy, meditate, like book that time and make it important to you. Because I hear people say these things a lot. Well, I forgot to do it. Well, that's essentially saying that you're not important to you. And if you're not important to you, guess what's going to happen? That energy is going to shrink and you're going to get back into that place again where the STEs are rampant. So yeah, you had some other ideas and I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I also, we can anchor, our potency and reclaim our power, and we don't have to be closed off. So I know, I feel like a lot of sisters are like, oh, I got my power back, but they're like, like they're like armored. And it's like, no, we can be anchored. Like I also
Defensive,
have
yeah.
that, my energy is very much like that. And it's taken me years to really like fine tune this field. And it comes from a place of love, number one, but it comes from a place of anchored power. And I feel that when you are able to, and that's really your own work. So as much as they can be projecting this onto your seeping and siphoning your energy, you're doing the exact same thing. And until you learn to master your field, it's the same, right? So it's like the give and take, the law of attraction, you're going to keep calling it in. So it's always this beautiful mirror that's there to teach you, like, oh my God, like, I've had experiences and sisters are like, oh my God, like, just like, listen, this person it was great, but like, I just feel like I'm just so tired in this 5D conversation all the time. And it's like, hold on, like, let's create some sacred boundaries. Like we need sacred boundaries. Like if we're teaching our children sacred boundaries, we need to teach the inner child sacred boundaries too, so that we can feel that we have the capacity for what we are choosing. And a lot of times we don't. And that spiritual hygiene is like number one. And then, so one of the things we do is, like I said, I'll have a bath, salts when I come back from events, because I'm attuned, I feel the energies and they're beautiful and they're all the good things. And then I'm like, and this is not coming into my bed with me because this is not mine. So the unhooking is one practice, baths with salts, lavender, get grounded in, really attuned to me. Being loving awareness is that we're aware, that's great, but we don't have to hold on to it, bind to it, and keep it as ours to show that we care. That's also like a cute little, story that we have. I personally love working with,
or judge it as, or like, even if we judge it as wrong, we'll hold on to it because we'll try and understand it or define it, or like, that was so negative. It's just energy. It's just what it is. Let it move. It wants to move. It actually loves to move and transmute. It's what energy does. It transmutes and transforms all the time. So try not to hold on to defining it as that was really good juju or that was bad juju. Like it's just energy. It's what you've defined it as that makes it more valid to you, only to you. Right.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't
drop the storyline.
Yeah.
Exactly. We don't need to hold the storyline behind it or trying to psychoanalyze it and look at your chart and why. No, like just like let it move through and off we go. Then we continue to flow. And when we stay in our flow, that's when we're our most purest, right? I also love to, I work with plant medicine.
Look at your chart though.
I'm not disregarding that. I love charts. I do.
Your chart and understand yourself, but
but it's when we're over psychoanalyzing every energy and everything that's coming in. It's just like, okay, like let's just breathe. Let's allow. Like I love birth charts. It's my gem. I love it. But there's other ways to, work with those energies and just observe them. Like they're just moving through. Let them move through.
They move.
Yeah, they move.
Yeah, they forever move.
So we talked a little bit about salt baths. Cool. Let's do it.
Yeah. We got another break. I know time flies when you're having fun.
I know.
It's our last commercial break, and we got about 5 minutes after that, and I'll let you share any other insights you've got right after the break. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email. info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we've been talking about sexually transmitted energies and what we can do about them. Like, how do we identify that we've got that? What do we do about it? We've got my cousin guest tonight, Natasha Jelenic, and we have been discussing this because we think it's an important topic. So, Nata, before you give us some of your last points, I'd like you to share with the audience how they can get a hold of you, what you've got coming up, some things about you so that they can connect with you.
Beautiful, thank you. So they can connect with me. My email is going to be in the show details, I believe, and
the show description.
Show description. You can find me also on Instagram, Nata_quantum goddess. I've been creating a lot these days, so lots coming through the pipelines. I always keep that updated on Instagram as well as on my Facebook, Nata Jelenic. And so lots coming, and ceremony spaces are also open. So to come in for a ceremony, do some deeper healing, trauma release, and all that beauty, it's all here for you. So just reach out and I can answer all your questions. I'm going to hop right into my last.
Awesome. So
yeah,
your last little bits. We have couple minutes to end.
Yeah, beautiful. So one of the things I also just wanted to mention, probably the most important one, is to like honor your body. Honoring your body is just allowing, and this is like thanks to you, sister, because you taught me so much about this. I'm really listening to my body and what my body needs and just asking, like, what do you need right now? And a lot of the time it's movement, and our bodies want to move, energies want to move. And so even like if you've had an experience intimate, maybe you're processing some of your own triggers instead of projecting them onto the person or blaming them for that. We can move our bodies in the most beautiful, most sensual, most slow movements that we desire, but really just allowing to have a safe space where you can do that. And I mean, here in Toronto, we have beautiful ecstatic dance places where we can go and move our bodies if we wanted to move with other people, or just in your bedroom, in your living room. Like, it's one of the greatest medicines that have really helped me move through my own trauma, my own sexual healing, and on my own repression and confidence through that, was allowing my body to move and giving her permission, because she wants to move. And so even when I'm around people, or if I've had experiences in intimacy that, something comes up and like, I'm like, oh gosh, this like traumatic event came up. I don't even know who this belongs to. And I'm just like, and your body's like, and you like cringe and you shake, like that energy just like wants to move out of you. And so that's probably just one of the most beautiful practices I've allowed to come in, and it's so cute. Like, we oftentimes think like, I used to I would have to drink to dance. Like, it was so weird. I had this story that I need to be drunk in order to dance, and da-da-da. And then like, once I wiped out that story and stopped drinking and all that kind of stuff, when I just attuned to her and what she wanted to do without anyone's projections of me trying to look, I'm like, I'm here, I'm dancing here. It's me and creator, and it's like this beautiful channel. And the stuff that you can clear, like we're talking about lineages, like cleared on the dance floor or on your, in your living room carpet, that can completely move through so much. So I would say, like, and this, cousin, too, right? Like, this is like, movement is medicine, energy in motion. It just like wants to move out of us.
Really.
And so beautiful too. And then of course, I always, I work with plant medicines. I'm a big advocate for responsible psychedelic use, and trauma healing and PTSD, and all that stuff can really, really help. But even just beautiful medicines like Palo Santo or sage, you can grow your own sage and burn sage to clear the energies. And having your own spiritual practice, especially during these times that we are so beautifully observing, is a beautiful way to just ensure that you're clear, and that will honor the space that your body wants to move and the codes that want to come through. It just becomes this like fluidity, and it's just like a beautiful, beautiful practice.
Thank you so much, cousin, for being on the show, cousin. Nata Jelenic, for those of you guys looking for Nata, so you don't have to look up cousin, like where's cousin. Thank you for being on the show and contributing your wisdom and your time to all the listeners. And
thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone. with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.